This video is sponsored by PGY Tech. Ever spent more time fixing a photo than taking it? Well, that's exactly what I would like to talk about in today's video. So recently I made a video about 5 pieces of bad photography advice, and one of the points covered was the idea that I don't always shoot in auto white balance. I mentioned that while auto white balance can be convenient, it's not always the best choice, especially when you're shooting a panorama or any series of images you plan to stitch. In those situations, setting a manual white balance can offer more consistency, so you won't have to worry about the white balance shifting between frames as you move through the scene. Now, a few people called me out on that point, and rightly so. They pointed out that if you're shooting in RAW, you can easily correct white balance in post-production by applying the same setting across the whole set of images. And that is absolutely true. I think I even mentioned it in the video. Now, I just wanted to explain why I do this, because maybe I didn't explain myself clearly enough in that last video. One of the main reasons is that I shoot in both RAW and JPEG. RAW to one card and JPEG to the other, and this gives me a backup in case one of the cards fails, and it also means I have quick access to the JPEGs if I want to share something straight away. But because white balance is baked into a JPEG file, it's much harder to correct it later in post-production. With the RAW file, of course, you can adjust it however you like and sync it to all of your other images. Now, there's not necessarily a right or wrong way here. Everyone has a different way of working. I'm simply just discussing the way that I do things in the hope that it might help some of you out. But more than that, I wanted to revisit the topic to highlight what I think is actually a bigger benefit of getting your settings right in camera, because I think it supports a mindset of shooting with intent. So we'll be touching on that throughout the video as well. By the way, I'm in the quaint village of Fishguard this morning on a bit of a photo walk, but I do intend to go out and shoot some landscapes a bit later on in the video. And I've got a new bag which we'll be talking about a little bit later on as well, so lots to cover in this week's episode. And this place is absolutely amazing. Over the years, I've found photography so much more rewarding and fulfilling when I approach it with intent. When I'm making deliberate creative choices in the field, rather than relying on fixing things later in post. If I set my white balance, framing and exposure thoughtfully at the time of shooting, I start visualising the final image as I take it. That mindset leads to stronger results and makes the whole process more enjoyable. For me, it's the difference between creating and correcting. One is a positive intentional experience, the other can often feel like damage control. And I've learned that the more present and engaged I am in the moment, the more I enjoy my own work. And when I make those decisions myself, it feels like I made the photograph, not the camera. Visualization leads to intent, I guess, and that's why I like to dial in all of my settings manually, from my shutter speed, my aperture, right through to my focus. I like to do everything manual, and I think by doing that, it gives me more control, there's more intent, and that makes the process a little bit more rewarding. And this isn't just about settings, it's about a mindset that I find more creative, more considered, and honestly, more fulfilling. When I stop and I think, I'm actually starting to imagine what the final image will look like. I'm visualizing the photo before I even press the shutter. It's a completely different experience from just shooting and sorting out later in the edit. Now, don't get me wrong, I love editing. It's a big part of the creative process for me. But editing feels completely different when I'm refining an idea that I had in the field. When I'm building on something I've already visualized and captured with intention. And I think in those moments, I know where I'm going. I've already made creative choices in the moment. Now it's just about enhancing them. But when I'm editing to fix something, it's a different energy. It can feel like I'm trying to rescue a photo rather than finish one. And that's not nearly as satisfying, I think. I don't want post-processing to be where the image begins. I want it to be where the image comes to life. And that shift in mindset has really changed how I approach photography as a whole. You know, I think when the intent is there from the start, the whole process, shooting, editing, all of it, just becomes way more enjoyable. So I've been enjoying shooting with the GX80 so far today. It's always nice to get out and shoot with this little camera. It's great for these little situations where I'm wandering around the streets. It allows me to be a little bit more inconspicuous, which is always nice. But like I mentioned, we'll be out later on shooting some landscapes, and I intend to use the Fuji equipment for that because I think it's better suited. So yeah, anyway, it is an enjoyable little camera to use. Now, aside from shooting fully manual, one thing I always do before I even start shooting is set my crop ratio in camera. Whether it's 4x5, 16x9 or square, because it helps me to see the exact framing that I want for the final shot. I think it makes composing in the field much more deliberate as well, because I'm not guessing how it's going to crop later. I'm framing it exactly how I want it to look, which I think is just another way of adding another layer of intent. So we've moved just a little further down the coast from where we were in Fishguard to walk a little bit of the coastal path this evening. And this place is absolutely beautiful. So as mentioned earlier, I'm trying out a new bag today, and you know, I've wanted something a little bit more discreet than the big hiking pack that I usually use, because you know, when I'm out in a town or a village, I often like to be a little bit more discreet, and that's often actually why I reach for that little Lumix GX80, because it, you know, it can fit in the pocket. Nobody really notices you taking photos. So this bag is by PGY Tech, who are the sponsors of this week's episode, and this is their one go-to backpack, which I think looks really nice. This one is the 20 litre version, but they do a 25 litre one as well. Mine is pine green, but other colours are also available. What I like is how much space and organisation it offers without it feeling big and bulky. It really does feel like quite a small pack. Inside there's a full set of customisable dividers. It also features side, top and rear access, allowing me to quickly get to my camera as required. Now, one of my favourite features is the top access, perfect for extra layers or a drone like how I've got mine set up. Of course, there's a dedicated laptop compartment as well, and plenty of smart little pockets for memory cards, batteries and cables. So if you're after a camera bag that's tough enough for the outdoors but refined enough for daily use, check out the One Go-To from PGY Tech. You'll find a link in the video description with all of the details. So a big thank you to PGY Tech for continuing to support the channel. Right, it's time to find a photograph, I think, and we'll talk a little bit more about shooting with intent. So one thing I've noticed is there's a few cannons buried in the hillside here. Let me spin you around. This is the second one I've seen. Maybe it was used to perhaps tie a boat up or something like that, but yeah, really cool to see. So going back to what we were talking about before, another way I like to shoot with intent is by setting my picture profile to match the final image I have in mind. So if I'm aiming for a black and white photo, I'll switch my camera to monochrome. Even though I'm shooting in RAW, seeing the scene in black and white helps me to focus more on contrast, shape and texture. It makes it easier to visualize the final result. And since I also shoot in JPEG, I have quick access to the finished looking colour or black and white image straight out of camera, without needing to apply any edits if I want to share something quickly. Now, that said, not everyone wants to shoot this way, do they? And that is completely fine. Wouldn't life be boring if we were all the same? Some people actually prefer to let the camera handle things like white balance or exposure so they can concentrate fully on the composition or their subject. And I totally get that. There's no right or wrongs here. Photography isn't about ticking boxes, is it? It's about finding your own way. If you're enjoying the process and making images you're proud of, that is what really matters. I rather stupidly forgot my water bottle, so I'm making do with this coffee cup, which is less than ideal because it doesn't fit in the bag, or at least if it did, it's probably going to leak in there, which is, yeah, less than ideal. But anyway, we'll muddle on through. Now, I did stop halfway between Fishguard and here for a fish and chip dinner, and I'm really feeling it right now. Oh, way too much food. But anyway, what a fantastic evening it is. I'm really hopeful we can get an image here. If not, there'll be another day, I'm sure. But I'm going to head round this headland here, because when I was flying the drone back there, the coastline up this way looked absolutely incredible. So yeah, just need to shake off this stitch. Woo. Come on. So while I've been walking this last half a mile or so, I've been contemplating and thinking to myself, you know, what do you guys shoot in? Is it RAW, is it JPEG, or is it both? I'd love to know. So please do let me know in the comments. It'd be really interesting to see what kind of split it is. I know there's a lot of people out there that are not really keen on editing. They want to spend most of their time out shooting. I spoke to a chap the other day that told me he rarely edits any of his photos at all, and sometimes doesn't even look at yeah, most of his shots. So it'd be interesting to know what you guys do. So please do let me know in the comments below. So I'm having one of those moments, you know, when you just see something that you weren't expecting and it just completely takes your breath away. I'm not going to say anything, I'm just going to spin you around and you can see for yourselves this place. Wow, had no idea this was here. What do you reckon to that? That's just incredible. And this little area down here, there's lots of bluebells and pink sea thrift. I think there's going to be a shot here. The tide is actually dropping as well through the evening, and we've probably got an hour and a half until last light. So I'm going to continue walking the coastal path to see what else I can find for maybe another 20 minutes, and then come back and shoot this when the light is a little bit better. But what a spot! Wow! Pembrokeshire, you have to come. It's incredible. Keep surprising me. Now, as incredible as that spot was, my initial thoughts are it might be quite difficult shooting it because the angle of the sun means there's quite a dark shadow running across the entrance to that cave there, and I think we're running the light in there as well. And the sun is going further round, obviously, to the west, meaning that shadow will probably get darker throughout the evening as well. So, I think I'll continue looking for something else. But as always, you know, if I ever find a shot that I want to come back to, I'm just as happy as taking a shot because, yeah, it just gives me another reason to come back. So hopefully we'll take something. We'll see. Anyway, let's go down here a bit. Oh dear, that's a stiff one. Well, I've walked right up to this peninsula here and right round to get a completely different view on the arch there. There's so many different shots in this one little sweeping bay here that, yeah, I've kind of just got to settle on maybe a couple, otherwise I'm going to end up getting loads of average shots. So I think I need to use my time wisely and really focus in on some of this foreground here. See if we can shoot a wide angle shot looking back towards these rocks in the background. Now, there's a lot of lichens and mosses on these boulders here, and they kind of lead the eye in towards those rocks in the background. There's also a lot of thrift as well, which looks absolutely fantastic. It is dying over just a little bit, but further up there, it seems to be a little bit more in full bloom. So I think I'm going to retreat up the hill a little bit and see if I can use these rocks here as a lead in line. The light's just catching the edges of these flowers as well, which I think works really well. So I think I'm going to put the wide angle lens on and really work on this, maybe a vertical composition. What an absolute spot. Unreal. Speechless. So I think I've found the position. I'm just going to spin you around and show you the foreground from this angle here. This looks really nice. Yeah, the light's just filtering through, catching the edges of these flowers. It's really making the pink petals really pop. Yeah, and the light actually in the background is really nice as well. Shame we don't have any detail in the sky, but because it's a wide angle lens, I'm really focusing in on the foreground and these rocks here, the sky. Yeah, it's going to be a very small part of the frame, so I don't think it's too much of a big deal. Right, wide angle lens. Tripod, because we're going to be focus stacking. So this has been a little bit of a head scratcher, I have to say, and that's mainly because of depth of field. Now I want to try and get the wide angle lens right into this pink sea thrift here in the foreground to really make it pop in the frame. However, if I do that, it means I'm going to have to focus stack through that plant, and that's going to be very difficult because it's moving around, everything's blowing around in the wind, and trying to focus stack that is going to be very, very difficult. So I've decided to step back a little bit, a few inches, and that means if I focus on the nearest plant, all of this plant is in sharp focus, meaning I don't have to do a focus stack down there. I do back there, but not in the foreground, and because we've got rocks back a bit further on, it's going to be easy to blend the two with just a simple mask in Photoshop. So that's what I've settled on. Now I'm trying to get a little bit of balance between the thrift and the rocks in the background. And the light's just getting better and better, so it really is worth sticking at, I think. But I do want to make my way a little bit further around and get another shot before we head off or before we lose the light. So I'm going to take this shot now. So I think it's going to be 3 images. I've got the 13mm Viltrox lens on and about 50th of a second, which freezes the motion in these flowers. I'm at f8. I've got my white balance set to daylight because I'm taking a series of images. I've also set it up in 4x5 orientation, a vertical shot, so I can see my framing in camera. So really, when I get back to post, all I'm going to have to do is some color adjustments, contrast adjustments, and blend the images together for the focus stack. So yeah, a nice clear thought process, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what this one looks like. Just wish there was a few wispy clouds that were catching the light in the sky, but you can't have everything, can you? Anyway, it'll give me a reason to come back next year. Right, let's take this shot then. First one focused on the pink sea thrift, 2-second timer. The next one focused just on the rocks behind. That light's lovely right now. And one on the background there. So, the jacket's on, the hat is on, it's getting rather chilly, and we need to find another shot. I'm really confident we can bag another one this evening. The colours are absolutely popping off down there. Blue water, obviously reflecting that blue sky we have, and that golden light hitting these orange rocks. We just need a foreground, or do we? That's the question. You don't always need a foreground, do you, when you've got such a dramatic backdrop? So yeah, I'm just being a bit careful where I stand here because there's a glade of bluebells in front of me and I really don't want to walk through them. So the image we took back there with the thrift in the foreground was absolutely wonderful, but I felt, you know, the sea was perhaps a little bit texture heavy. So what I did was I put a 6-stop filter on and took a longer exposure for the sea at about a second, and that just allowed the sea to have some motion blur in it, and I felt that that added a little bit to the image. So I'll put that image up now while I'm framing this one, and you can let me know if you would which you prefer. Do you prefer the one with the frozen motion in the water or the one that's got a bit of movement? I think I'm leaning more towards the movement myself. But anyway, let me know, and I'm going to frame the shot up and we'll get this one set up before the light dips down. So I've gone for a very simple framing here. I've just zoomed in pretty much on these rocks at about 45 mils, something like that. The light's just coming through and hitting the sides of these rocks, just lighting it up with a wonderful orange colour. I've got the circular polarizer on, that's just taking a little bit of reflection off of the water. 3-stop filter as well, reducing my exposure time to, what are we, about 1.5 seconds with f9. So yeah, let's go ahead and take this shot now. The light's looking really nice actually. Be interesting to see what the motion blur is like and whether my rocks are sharp, because there is a bit of a breeze. No, the rocks are good. Yeah, I really like that. Nice and simple to finish off the day. So I do hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. That really does help me out. And why not check out this video up here and my ebook, which might help you out as well if you're looking to improve your landscape photography composition. Anyway, a massive thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all again next week.